This iconic photo of World War II, the raising of the U.S. flag on Iwo Jima. For decades, we thought we knew the identities of the 6 Marines in the photo. Now history is officially being rewritten. Reporter Emily Zink is live with how an Omaha amateur historian uncovered the truth.
Well, Jenny, Eric Crelly of Omaha, Nebraska isn't the first person to question the identities of the 6 men in this famous photograph, but he is the only person to get the Marine Corps to acknowledge that it did misidentify one of those men. The Battle of Iwo Jima. It was one of World War II's bloodiest battles.
Slowly, the Marines pushed forward up Mount Suribachi.
In the midst of the fight, the war's most iconic photo was snapped, and 6 Marines were hailed as heroes.
I'd read Flags of Our Fathers and I'd seen the Clint Eastwood movie, and I never questioned that any of this history was wrong.
The government identified the men as Ira Hayes, Michael Strength, Renee Gagnon, Harlan Block, Franklin Sousley, and John Bradley.
A lot of what this guy is wearing is wrong for who he was supposed to be identified as.
Through Eric Crelly's online World War II blog, Stephen Foley of Ireland put the bug in Crelly's ear that they should look into whether or not the 6 men in the famous photo had been properly ID'd.
If you follow this figure Schultz, he kind of steps out pretty quickly.
The Omahan and amateur historian spent hours looking at video and still photos from that day in 1945.
And here he is walking over here. You can see this thing dangling off of his helmet.
Crelly was convinced John Bradley, the most famous flag raiser who had a book and a Hollywood movie based off his life, wasn't even in the photo. But who was the 6th man if it wasn't Bradley?
I was always like, what is that? It looks like a scar. It's not a scar. It's the shadow from the liner's chin strap hanging off of his helmet.
Crelly identified the mystery Marine as Harold Schultz. He had to tell someone about his discovery.
I figured I was going to stay there 10 or 15 minutes, sort of be polite, shake his hand, listen to him for a little bit, and leave.
Crelly called World Herald columnist Matt Hansen with the news. Hansen says he was hesitant at first.
By the time I left, I knew that we had a potentially huge story. I knew he was onto something.
In November of 2014, after Hansen published an article about Crelly's findings, the story caught the attention of Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Morgan, who is a Marine officer turned Hollywood military advisor. The Smithsonian Channel wanted to make a movie. They hired a forensic analyst to recheck Crelly and Foley's original research that Hansen wrote about in 2014.
Every effort that's ever been made or put forth before the Marine Corps has been turned away as, this is our story, we're sticking to it.
This time, the Marine Corps began investigating the claim. On Thursday, the Marines acknowledged that it had misidentified one of the 6 men photographed.
Just thinking about Harold Schultz and a guy who history never recognized, we've kind of pulled out now and put before the public and said, no, this guy was a part of an amazing American event.
According to Hansen, Schultz never told anyone it was him and not Bradley in the photo. When he died, his stepdaughter found a picture he had stored for decades showing him atop Mount Suribachi that day in 1945.
There was this completely unknown guy who now, sadly after his death, but still gets a place in American history that he never had.